fellow Dominicans, residents, visitors, and well-wishers. I wish to speak to you today on a few matters of national interest and concern. My doing this will, I am aware, trigger national discussion. It is my hope that we can conduct and contain such discourse to what is relevant and best for Dominica, so that increasingly the world can continue to see us as a mature, enlightened, developing nation. In about 3 weeks, we celebrate national independence. This is, as I have constantly reiterated, a passport to freedom and autonomy. It is also an undertaking and a charge of maturity and responsibility. It demands that as a government and as a people, we act in crucial situations in the best interests of Dominica and its inhabitants. Accordingly, it was against this backdrop that yesterday evening I requested the file pertaining to the country's continuous monitoring of the impact of the Ebola virus, which is now present around the globe and particularly in West Africa. Clearly, the world is once again under threat. But I'm confident that just as we grappled with and overcame similar threats, such as HIV/AIDS and SARS in recent years, so too will scientists and health authorities around the world successfully contain and hopefully eventually eradicate the threat of this real danger to humanity. As citizens of the world, each of us has to play our part in the process. Fellow citizens and residents, I am also mindful of the discussion underway in the country pertaining to the real or perceived potential risk to Dominica and Dominicans by the Ebola virus. The most we can do as a nation is to monitor and manage travel, particularly travel into the country. We're a traveling nation and tourism is our lifeblood, whether it is movement for business, education, or pleasure. We cannot suspend the movement of people, but we can monitor and we can act proactively to minimize the risk of exposure. To date, the majority of Ebola cases, suspected and confirmed, emerge from and exist in various parts of Africa. That is a reality that none can deny. It is a real, and I like to keep things simple. It is real, and I like to keep things simple. We have to pay close attention to travel to and from Africa and other regions under direct or potential threat of the Ebola virus. These are early days yet, but precaution is absolutely necessary. Organizers of the World Creole Music Festival are and have always been proactive. Several months ago, even before the hosting of last year's event, they would have made contact with and contracted entertainment bands from around the globe. Indeed, I am told that there are already inquiries and preliminary agreements for appearances at next year's festival. Forward planning is wise, and theirs in that regard is commendable. But forward planning is also fraught with risk. To select and confirm entertainers, you have to enter into negotiations and agree on contracts that are legally binding. The reversal or unlocking of the same is normally a matter for legal operatives. However, the Prime Minister, as chief lawmaker, is charged with the wider responsibility of acting first and always in the nation's interest. This year's lineup of contracted performing artists at the World Creole Music Festival includes the band called Flavour from Nigeria, with a total party of 4 traveling from Nigeria to Dominica. There is also a second band comprised of persons of African origin, but who are based outside of Africa. Indeed, its 8 members are booked to travel from Paris Montreal, and New York. I am also informed that members of this band, Suku's Stars, have not traveled within recent times to regions severely impacted by the Ebola virus. Given the heightened nature of screening in their countries of residence, they can be characterized as low risk in the context of the emerging global threat of Ebola. That group, therefore, is not of special concern to me or my government in the context of the Ebola threat at this time. However, even though, like all other pandemics, no one can ever be sure who has been exposed to or fallen victim to Ebola, information and awareness must be factored into all considerations. Until a firm grip is secured on this Ebola virus, the world has to pay special attention to regions of its predominance. West Africa, as I said previously, is one such region. I have reviewed the file with respect to the contractual arrangements entered into with the Flavour Band out of Nigeria. To date, a total of EC $147,000 has been expended on professional fees and international travel by this group. This is a lot of money, but in my view, it pales into insignificance when matched against the consequences of exposing the people of this region to the risk of the Ebola virus. I would like to think that reason and common sense can and will prevail. But I readily acknowledge that the law is the law, and contracts negotiated can, at best, be renegotiated. Accordingly, purely out of an abundance of caution, I have today instructed the organizers of the 18th Annual World Creole Music Festival to meet with officials of the relevant legal departments of government to determine among themselves how the matter of a renegotiation of the Flavour contract can be entered into. Flavour is obviously a talented band, and we would like to welcome them to Dominica at some point. Indeed, I would love if, by this time next year, the Ebola virus could have been brought under control, if not eradicated. Regions around the world cleared of the threat of the virus, and entertainers, such as Flavour, could visit and perform in Dominica. This indeed would be my wish for the outcome of the discussions that will be entered into. But for the time being, I have advised the organizers of the World Creole Music Festival that the government of Dominica would not be prepared at this time to sponsor or embrace the visit of persons from a universally recognized Zone 1 area of the dreaded Ebola virus. Fellow Dominicans and friends, this is a decision of the government. It is final. While I know there are those in our midst who believe they must dissect and ridicule everything that government says or does, I believe it will be helpful and responsible for all citizens and residents to move on now with the job of promoting this year's World Creole Music Festival. We have an impressive array of talent from around the world. Without Flavour, the lineup remains impressive, and I insist that there is the potential for this year's World Creole Music Festival to be the best ever. All it takes now is for citizens and residents to join in the promotion and in the hosting of this spectacular event. The second point of reference today pertains as well to a manifestation of national pride and responsibility. Dominica has been blessed with excellent leaders over the years. Time would not permit me to recap them all, and frankly, I do not think it is necessary to do. On this occasion, however, I wish to highlight the role and the demise of two former leaders who, history will show, made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of this nation. Former Prime Ministers, the late Rosie Douglas and the late Pierre Charles, died in office in the service of this country. They died at a point when each was battling with the task of transforming the economy of Dominica in the throes of the worst economic recession in nearly 100 years. I said on the occasion of the untimely passing of each of them that the efforts should never be minimized or forgotten. We are a grateful nation. And even though schools in their respective former constituencies have been named in their honor, the government has always been in search of something more viable and more visible and readily evident to residents and visitors alike. We need as a nation, on the eve of our 46th anniversary of independence, to look inward for heroes. We need to salute our own. We need to express our gratitude to those who gave selflessly to the struggle. In the case of these two fallen leaders, they gave their lives to the struggle of rescuing and developing Dominica. 2 weeks ago, I made a presentation to the Cabinet of Ministers in which it was recommended that we use the single largest manifestation of progress and modernity in Dominica over the past 10 years as a fitting and lasting tribute to the contribution of late Prime Ministers Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles to Dominica. I refer to none other than the reconstruction and expansion of the Melville Hall Airport and the introduction of night landing in Dominica. In my estimation, these improvements represent the largest leap forward in our development as a nation over the past 15 years. I am therefore pleased to announce that at its regular meeting of Tuesday, October 7, 2014, the Cabinet of Ministers ratified its earlier decision to have the Melville Airport formally renamed the Douglas Charles Airport. As a tribute to and in honor of late Prime Ministers Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles, I take this opportunity to invite all Dominicans, residents and visitors to a grand renaming ceremony at Melville Hall on the evening of Monday, October 27, 2014. Details of this event and the arrangements that will be made island-wide to transport persons to Melville Hall will be announced by the National Committee charged with the coordination of this event. Finally, but certainly of no less importance, is the announcement of plans for the formal opening and renaming of the new and expanded highway from Melville Hall to Pocassee. This too represents a giant step forward in the ongoing development of Dominica. A ceremony for the official opening of that highway will be held on Thursday, 30th October. Again, details of this event will be made public by the relevant committee charged with its coordination. Suffice to say that Monday, October 27th and Thursday, October 30th are dates that all Dominicans should commit to the diaries as days with events of national importance. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I believe there is enough from what I have said to inform your stories. If there are any areas of doubt or misunderstanding relating to anything I have said here today, I will gladly clarify, but I will not entertain any other issue on this occasion. I now therefore invite questions to any of the three preceding matters. I thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm going to Dr. Slogan, TBS News. Prime Minister Skerrit, at the press conference yesterday, it was revealed that Dominica will formalize screening at the Melville Hall Airport. And Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health explained exactly what they will be doing. How far do you see this going as far as Dominica taking precautionary measures?
Well, as the Ministry of Health would have said to you yesterday, that there are a number of actions that they have already taken in our preparation for any eventuality. And clearly we've been following the protocol set out by the WHO. And one of the requirements is the setting up of a screening protocol at our port of entry. The Ministry of Health over the last several weeks have been busy at work seeking to put all of the systems in place. So we have identified a location at the airport. The necessary changes will be made to that facility at the airport. The Minister of Finance has indicated that all of the funds required for preparing Dominica shall be made available. We will not take anything or not leave anything to chance, because we understand and appreciate as a country the impact that this can have on the way of life of Dominica and the entire region. And we are also in regular contact with PAHO and the CARICOM, which is seeking to coordinate the individual member states' own preparation, because clearly there's going to have to be some collaboration and cooperation among member states in terms of assisting each other to prepare and to be ready for any eventuality.
Is there a set time as to when it will start this collaborative effort?
Well, there was a meeting in Washington, PAHO meeting in Washington. Ministers of Health would have met there. That matter was discussed. We've been having communication from CARICOM with a checklist that have been sent to all member states. We are in contact with CARICOM on this. So there's discussion. There have been discussions between ourselves and Barbados and CAFA. So there's this continuous discussions. Of course, it is something that all of us are paying very close and particular attention to, whether it's in Australia, whether it is in Spain, whether it is in the United States, and of course, in Africa that has been battered by this deadly virus. And of course, we are comforted by the fact that, you know, the European countries and the United States have indicated and announced increased measures for screening, coming into the sports. So that this is a welcome declaration by the authorities of the United States and some European countries.
Stick with our Caribbean. Prime Minister, I would imagine that the DFC had a certain financial target in mind for the World Creole Music Festival, and now that Flavour is not coming, that would affect the financial aspect of the festival. Would government be willing to sort of subsidize to?
Well, let me, as I stated in my address, that our preoccupation is not about how much money the Creole Festival will lose. My preoccupation as the leader of this country is on the economic and social impact if we're to be visited by one person with the virus. So the show will continue. And as I said, we may very well have the best festival ever in the last 18 years. So it is not for me a monetary consideration. It is simply taking precautionary measures to safeguard our country and of course the region. So the issue of internal money issues, if there are, I don't think there are, because they didn't tell me so last night or this morning. That will be addressed always. But it is a serious concern for all of us in the world, and therefore we all have to do what we can do to minimize our exposure and to be prepared. Yes.
Mr. Prime Minister, you've told us. Yeah, you've told us that on Thursday, October 30th, we'll be seeing the formal opening of new and expanded highway from Melville Hall. Would you give us a status report on the Melville Hall Road and where we're at? I know there are a number of bridges that were unfinished. Where are we with that?
Well, based on what the Ministry of Public Works saying to us, by then, all of the couple of bridges that have not been surfaced would be surfaced by then. We had some issues with both the subcontractor and the contractor. As you know, the bridges were given to a different contractor based on agreements with the Agence Française de Développement, and there were some issues between that contractor and the contractor who was mandated to, was contracted by the contractor with the bridges to surface. There was the issue of they not having sufficient bitumen. That has been cleared by from the customs, I believe last week, and from all indications from the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Works, there should be no reason why those two bridges cannot be addressed in a matter of a few days. Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Prime Minister, you mentioned that you're making efforts to have Flavour removed from the Creole Festival. In terms of a replacement, because Flavour is an international act, has the DFC or the government taken into consideration any sort of replacement artist for Flavour?
Well, that's matter for the DFC to look at and to make their own decision on it. I don't necessarily get involved in replacements of bands, but it's a matter for them. But based on what I have seen in terms of the lineup, we have more than enough bands for that night, and I'm sure that we will have a great event. Okay, thank you. Sure.
Good afternoon, sir. I understand that the airport will be renamed.
Yes.
The Melville Hall Airport. Now, after we build a new one, would that transfer to the new one?
Well, I'm sure when we build the international airport, I have no doubt that the government would certainly transfer the names to this new airport. Yes, right. And on Tuesday, Tuesday evening, God's willing, we will announce after whom the new road will be named. So we'll make an announcement on Tuesday. But it will be named after somebody who has made a sterling contribution to the country. Sure. And if anybody is speculating, it will not be Roosevelt Skerrit.
One more question, sir. With the road, I see the road stopped by the bridge to the Caribbean territory. Would there be another phase for that to the Melville Hall Airport, to the Pierre Charles Rosie?
Yes, that's yeah. The cabinet had mandated the Ministry of Public Works a couple months now for the new estimates for that section. So that entire section will be redone, including the construction of a new bridge. Remember, this last small bridge was left out. Mango Hole. That new bridge. We have an estimate for this. As a matter of fact, a contract may be issued for that very soon. But not only this road, but entirely through the Caribbean territory, also back to Castle Bruce and back to Poncasse and going towards Dalis onto P7 area, Dubic area. So this whole under the World Bank funding and also European Union funding. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for attending. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. That's you, Kishel Nicholas.